Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special Monday morning edition of SallyTalk. As I've mentioned that I'm going to settle into Friday mornings at 10 o'clock, but today I have such a special guest that we're doing it on Monday. So let me just introduce you to Stacy Dymalski. Now, Stacy Dymalski is an author. She's a screenwriter. She's a comedian. She's extraordinaire on many different things. But we met. I wanted to start right off and just say, first of all, I need to do my sponsor.
Okay.
So there are a lot of podcasts that do monetizing, and so I've realized since I'm not doing that right now, my Arbonne business actually monetizes my podcast. So if you could just bear with me, Stacy, while I thank my sponsor. So for 39 years, Arbonne International has cared about you, your body, your skin. And so they haven't allowed 2,000 ingredients that are harmful, that have been proven harmful. If 1,300 of them were in the EU, and we've added extra ones that we found that aren't harmful, and that they're not good for you and not good for your skin. And we've done that for 39 years. We're not doing it now because it's popular. So if you want to hear more about that, you can contact me through my website at sallyholida.arbonne.com. That's sallyholida.arbonne.com. Thank you, Arbonne, for being a wonderful sponsor of SallyTalk. All right, back to the show. Okay. Anyway, so thanks, Stacy, for that, letting me do that blatant plug.
Well, it is
for my
show.
Sponsor. Well, it is, and I get to do that.
You get to do whatever you want.
So, Stacy Dymalski came into my life at a networking event, and I was sitting next to her, and when I found out what she did, well, that she was a comedian, that was the first thing I loved. But then also, she's an author, and she had a business called the Memoir Midwife that helped people write books. And I had been thinking about writing a book for a while. And so I went, that's weird. We're sitting right next to each other. And we hit it off immediately. So I am so excited because this is like big guest. I'm very excited that you have agreed to be in my podcast.
Well, this is one of the best podcasts I've been on.
Awesome. Thanks. I'll pay you later. I'll give you Arbonne. Anyway.
I'll take it.
So you started with the, so talk me a little bit about Memoir Midwife, because we're going to go into your one-woman show and everything later on. But talk a little bit about how you got started with doing the Memoir Midwife and helping people write their books, because you feel strongly about storytelling.
I do. And how it started out was I was, and still am, a story developer in Hollywood for videos and TV and movies, and a screenwriter as well. And you can see all that on my IMDb page. I won't go into it. But what happened was I got a lot of friends who said, hey, I'm working on a book, and I was wondering if you can help me with it. And I said, sure. So I did, but it kind of started taking over my life. And I thought, well, I think there's a business in here helping people figure out their stories for their books, not just for Hollywood and movies and TV. So that became the Memoir Midwife. And my tagline is, it's find it, write it, share it, it's your story. So I started doing that, and it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and I developed a method, which then evolved into an online course. And I also wrote a book called The Memoir Midwife, 9 Steps to Self-Publishing Your Book, because what happened was a lot of these people that I helped didn't have the patience, and I don't blame them, of trying to get a publisher, a traditional publisher, because that could take months to years. And then on top of that, by then they want you to rewrite a lot of things. So, okay, I'll turn that off.
That's all right. It might have been my phone.
So anyway, the book, the online course, and then I had online classes, and then I taught for a while at University Extension. It all kind of snowballed and became a career that I never even imagined I would have, but really love, because I get to help people tell their stories, and I am passionate about it. I do believe that sharing personal stories can change the world, because it's a level of compassion where people go, oh, I can relate to that, me too, even though they may not even have anything else in common. They have this story or this issue or this problem or this revelation or whatever it is that they write about. It kind of levels the playing field, and so I'm thrilled to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that it's interesting because it's really what binds us together. It's the fact that human beings can connect like that. You literally mentally connect when you hear someone else tell a story that you can relate to. it's like a spark goes off.
You not
and
only
you feel all of a sudden in the same groove as that person.
That's really well put. But not only do you feel that connection, I think more importantly, you feel compassion. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to get mad at somebody who experienced the same tragedy as you and then authentically and vulnerably articulates it. And then you know exactly how they feel. That brings people together more than anything, I think. And the more that we can do that, the more that we can put our authenticity out there and not be afraid to be vulnerable, the more we will connect on many levels. And I think that's the basis to get rid of everything from your cranky neighbor to war among countries.
Right.
So, you got to start somewhere.
No, I absolutely agree. I feel like being the child, I always say is, and I love my dad and I love my family and everything, but my dad was a World War II veteran and I grew up on all those old movies and stuff, and everybody, the best years of our lives, the movie The Best Years of Our Lives is all about these guys coming back from World War II, and it's really hard for them to like deal with their combat and come back to this picturesque little town, and nobody's talking about it and nobody wants to know. So I really feel like we're in a phase right now where it is okay, because I was kind of raised to be like, don't show that because you might get hurt or somebody, nobody wants to hear it. Don't wear your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah.
And I do think that we're in a time now where the vulnerability and the transparency, is really important because that's what connects us.
I have 2 millennial sons and I raised them, they're in their early 20s, and I raised them that way. I told them, when you feel like crying, cry. When somebody makes you mad, tell them. Don't keep it all bottled up inside. I think that's even more important for males because, like you said, we were all taught not to share our dirty laundry, but men in particular were taught to just, the term man up.
Right.
Suck it up and push it down and move on. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing more unhealthy than keeping all of that negative energy bottled up inside.
Yeah,
so,
it serves you for a while.
It does.
And I think that's what's deceiving about it, is that it serves you for a while, and then all of a sudden it really doesn't. Mm-hmm. And then you don't know why. You're like, I don't understand. Why is this not working for me? Mm-hmm. And then you realize that you've been holding everything in.
I have a great story that illustrates that. A client that I worked with, a woman, whom shall remain nameless, she hired me to help her write her story. And when I say help them write their stories, I'm not a ghostwriter. I don't write. What I do is I mentor them to write it based upon a process that I have developed. So they do the writing, I review it, I give notes, I make some edits. And when I say edits, I don't rewrite. I just make suggestions and then I give it back. And there's this back and forth process until we both decide it's done. So this woman hired me to do that with this story. Now, she went through a lot of tragedies that I won't even get into. It's irrelevant, but health issues, personal issues, relationship. It was just like the world came down on her in one particular year of her life, and it was awful. And she got through it, but she wanted to write about it. And I could tell she was a little bit bitter. So I tried to help her get through that and make it productive. So anyway, by the time when she was done, we worked on this for 2 years. When she was finally done and had a completed manuscript, she said, I want to sit on this for a second before we decide how we're going to publish it. So a couple months went by and she came back to me and she said, I've made a decision. I want to burn it. I want to take this manuscript and I want to ceremoniously burn it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. That kind of bugged me because...
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And it's not, my name doesn't appear on any of my clients. It's all their work. So it's not like it was my big opportunity to have recognition. Nobody would know anyway. Mm-hmm. But it just that she'd worked so hard and I just wanted it to get out there and I thought it was good. And she said, no, I have put it aside. I picked it up and I reread it and I realized all I needed was to just get it down there in one place for me to look at again. And that's not me. I realize I've moved past it, I'm gone, and I don't really want to dwell in that, and I don't want to share this with anybody. So she said, I'm going to burn it. And so I wasn't there, but supposedly, and she promised me she made me promise her, she said, I want you to delete it from your computer. I don't want any existence of it left.
Wow.
So I promised her I would, but I didn't do it right away. I thought she'd come back and say, do you still have it? I kind of wish I hadn't done that.
Mm-hmm.
But a year later, I was cleaning up my computer and trying to make space, and I came across it, and I thought, God, it's been a year. So I deleted it, and it kind of felt like, I felt it go away. And
wow.
So a lot of times, well, you're right, keeping it bottled up will serve you, but at some point it bubbles to a surface and then something will happen. Either you have a nervous breakdown or you have a revelation or you become a better person or a worse person or whatever, but it will come back to get you if you don't deal with your stuff. Deal with your story, good, bad, or indifferent. You have got to recognize it and own it and then figure out how it serves you.
That was one of the things that it didn't occur to me when I was thinking about writing, because that's a big talking thing you can say at a dinner party. Yeah, I should write a book, or you say a funny story, or somebody says to you, "Oh, it's such a funny story. You should write write that down." And it's all big and fine when you're talking about it, but then when it's time to actually do it, one of the things I didn't realize was that it would help. The process would help me. And, as talking about, like last week we were talking with Liz about self-care, but it's a form of self-care to work your way through something like that. And you're actually kind of at a roadblock if you don't move forward and do something, I think, share your story or in some form, in some capacity. But if you the actual process of doing it actually helped me. It didn't occur to me. I thought it was kind of like I thought it was kind of like a egotistical thing. I didn't realize that it would help me. And I heard a speaker, I was listening to a bunch of things, after John died, I was listening to a million things. And I heard this one guy say, thanks so much for listening to me go through this. This helps me to think on my feet. Speaking in front of people and talking about this kind of stuff helps me clarify it in my mind. And I went, oh, so if I move forward with like the book idea and then now the podcast, I realized, oh, this will help me like really work through and get to know myself. So like that woman.
Yeah. Yeah. And the difference because a lot of people journal thinking, okay, that's going to help me process. And that's good. Journaling is better than nothing.
Right.
But the difference between journaling and doing something like this, your podcast or writing a book, is that when you do something like you write a book or a screenplay or a podcast, you have a message. There, you have to really think about what's my message that I'm trying to get out. And that's kind of like your North Star. And then after that, you have an arc. You have a beginning, middle, and end to your stories. And that gives you a little bit of structure on which to write. Whereas journaling, it's just random thoughts. And you can take journals and then journal entries and then wrangle them in and create something out of it. That's kind of how my book, Confessions of a Band Geek Mom, came about. But at the end of the day, there is a story arc there. And so that's what I provide, is I introduce those concepts to the person who wants to write a book and say, now when you're writing, keep this stuff in mind. And this is going to give you some guidance on how to write.
That's what I felt really helpful on your online course, was that kind of, for me, kind of made it like I kind of saw what I do when I do tell a story, because I love to tell stories, and that and it made me much more conscious of it, of the arc aspect of it, knowing that you're going to get somewhere, or you want to make sure that you're conveying a certain point instead of being all over the place. But that's the thing, when you decide you want to do it, then you really have to. There's a process that you have to go through to do it, but it's very just eye-opening to kind of go back through your life and what is my theme, or what is it about me that I feel, kind of comes up from all these events that happen in my life. It's really
your secret
interesting.
Sauce.
Yeah. And it gives you a lot of confidence, about who you are.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And it makes you a better storyteller, because there are some people who just born who can tell a good story. And there's some people who want to tell a good story, but you just want to stick an ice pick in your ear when they go on. And you think, what is the difference? Why is this person good to listen to and this person I just want to kill myself? And part of the reason is the structure. This person just knows how to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and the other person is just rambling on and on and on.
Editing.
They say things like, yeah, and then Friday we went down, was it Thursday? Or maybe it was Saturday. Joan, when was that? Was it Thursday, Friday? And by now you're like, okay, I just want to go.
That's my favorite. Was it Tuesday? Was I with Phyllis? Or was I with Jeannie? I don't remember. And you're like, I don't know.
I stopped
keep moving.
I stopped for directions once in Texas. I was there actually in Austin to do comedy, and I got lost. This was before GPSs and on your phone and everything. And I stopped and I asked this guy for directions, this old grizzle-lip Texan guy. And he goes, I roll down the window and I'm like, hey, can you tell me how to get to... And he walks up and he goes, well, let me think. All right, what we're going to do, you're going to go down here this road a piece. And you're going to go maybe a quarter of a mile. No, half mile. No, maybe about a mile. And then you turn left. Or is it right? And by now I'm like, okay, now I'm even later than I was before.
Then you're going to go north. That's what men always say. They always go, you go north. And you're like, north? Which way's north? Yeah. Just tell me to take a left at the 7-Eleven. That's what I need.
Yeah, left or right, dude. Let's just get real here.
Now, speaking of which, so I've seen two of your shows, and then I just saw your last show a bit much. It was so great. It was really, really great. And so now you're going to be doing it at the Hollywood Fringe, which we'll be talking about that. But one of the things I loved about the show is that you're on a date. Yes. You start off on a date, and it's funny because when I hear when we were younger, the stories were different, but like at our age. It's funny, like dating and stuff it's really different, especially when you have children.
Yeah,
grown children or older children
who are dating.
Yeah, right.
I never in a million years thought I would be a woman of a certain age back to dating. I was married for 20 plus years, and then I wasn't. That's a whole nother comedy routine. And so there comes that time in every divorced woman's history where she suddenly finds herself alone and somebody asks her out on that first date since she's been divorced. And if you've been married for decades, that muscle's kind of rusty, And I had that experience where somebody asked me out, and it was sort of a friend, an acquaintance. So I wasn't even, is this a date? Or is this just like two people going out? I'm so confused. So I get dressed up, and he takes me to a nice restaurant, and we sit, and it's expensive. And since I'm going through a divorce, I'm broke. Right. And this restaurant is beyond my means. So I'm looking at it thinking, I hope my debit card can even go through on this.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, do I pay or does he pay?
That's just it. Oh, yes.
Because I'm kind of old-fashioned like that. But then now when you're older, you're like, well, wait a minute. It's not like,
Right. And then there comes a thing and you think, I might even have more earning power than this man. So am I expected to date?
Am I supposed to pay for him?
Yes. Even though I have no money in my account right now. So this is all going through my head as I'm looking at this menu I can't afford. And he's like, oh, what do you think you have? And I go, I'm not that hungry. I think I'm just going to have a salad. Because that's all I can afford. So the waiter comes and I go, yeah, I'll have the half Caesar. And then the waiter stands there staring at me like, and I go, oh, definitely a martini.
I was going to say alcohol has to be involved.
Yeah, which, by the way, the martini was more than the half Caesar. So and he goes, would you like some protein on that? Some salmon or chicken? Oh, no, because that'll make it twice as much. No. So my date or whatever he is sitting across from me says, oh, is that all you're going to have? I'm kind of hungry. I was going to have an entree. And I said, oh, no, you go right ahead. I'm stuffed. I had a late lunch, So the meals come, and I'm picking at my salad, trying to make it last, because this guy's got, surf and turf. He's got a lobster tail. And
a bib. Does he have a lobster bib?
And a, 12-ounce steak, and a couple glasses of wine, and salad, appetizer. It's just like a buffet on the other side of the table. And I'm just one bite of lettuce at a time on my Caesar. And we get through it, and I'm starving. And so finally, the bill comes, and he picks it up, and he's looking at it, and I lean across, and I go, okay, I had the Caesar, and
right, we're not splitting the bill.
yeah, we're not splitting the bill. I had the Caesar and the martini. So here, like, here's a couple 20s. I think that will come. And he looks at me and he's like, I got it. Like, lady, I can afford your stupid Caesar salad. I'm so confused. I'm like, oh no. And then the next thing is, am I supposed to kiss him or what?
Well, if I'd known that, I would have ordered the lobster too.
Yes. Do I have to sleep with him just because he bought me a Caesar? If that's the
right?
case.
That always kicks in.
Yeah, I should have got the lobster to go.
But if you'd gotten the lobster, maybe then he would have split the bill.
Exactly.
Who knows? It's so confusing.
It is just super confusing because there are no lessons for this. You know, there should be, when just like a lot of places when you get married, especially if you get married in a church, they make you go through like couples therapy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, bless her heart, Gwyneth Paltrow. There should be some uncoupling lessons that you have to go through about what are the rules now. You know,
right, to bring you up to speed.
Yes.
You just sit around with a bunch of single people your age so they can bring you up to speed.
Yeah.
As to what's in on dating now.
I know, because I actually have this in my stand-up, and there's a grain of truth to it, which is what makes it so funny, is I think you should be allowed to send out divorce announcements. You know, I think Constant Contact should have a template for that.
Well, they kind of do it now on Facebook. People do it on Facebook.
I noticed in the last year, people have announced, so I just want you all to know that Janice and I are...
And they'll tag Janice,
yes,
and it'll be like a...
And Janice shares that post.
It's so
Brave New World.
I know, it's so crazy. But it works.
Well, it'd be funny.
It kind of works. Now we know. And then we all go, you don't do heart, because you don't want to say, I love that you guys are splitting up.
You don't do ha-ha.
And then you don't do ha-ha, you get to a tear.
I know, it's like...
a little... So you just kind of do
thumbs up, I guess. Yeah, thumbs up.
Wishing you the best.
There should be a new acknowledgement instead of thumbs up or cry. It should be like, got it.
A wink or something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Got this, sir.
Got it. Yeah, I'll change my Christmas card file. Yeah, I got it. Okay. Not to ask how Janice and the kids are doing when I see you at the store. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's right. Well, then there's like the funny situations. Like it reminded me of the. I had a friend of mine who was an attorney, and she got hooked. She got matched up by a friend with this guy who was like, I think he was like a dentist or something. Anyway, they went out to dinner, and they're sitting there having dinner, and he just keeps talking and talking and talking and talking, and so she's just like. Okay, so finally she just went, you know what? And she's funny. You know, she looked like that woman. I was Gillian Anderson, I think, the one from X-Files.
Oh,
so
yes,
she's really attractive.
Her.
She had the red hair,
beautiful,
really cute. Anyway, she goes, I looked at my watch at 7:30, and I went, I'm not going to speak and see what happens. So they have dinner. He pays the bill. He paid the bill.
Yeah, that's something.
He drove her home. She looked at her watch. And it was 10:30, and she had not said anything.
Just nodded appropriately.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she was engaged, but she just didn't speak. She just was doing a little test. So she said goodnight, and he dropped her off. So the next morning, her friend called and said, I don't know, man. He thinks you're delightful. He thinks, I've never heard him talk like this. Like, he so wants to go out with you again. She was like, I didn't speak for 2 hours.
It's like the perfect woman.
I'm taking her out again.
This guy thinks he's with the mother load.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Well, then we should be able to post secretly on. There should be a secret Facebook page for women for just giving heads up, ladies, on this guy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was so funny. But yeah, it really is true. It's like navigating, just going through and navigating all of it again. And also, too, that they're older guys now. Like, I don't know about you, but it's funny. Like, I just saw on Twitter that everyone was talking about Paul Rudd is 50.
Yeah, I saw
which
that.
Is freaky. Because I'm 50. I'm going to be 56 this year, and I still see him in Clueless.
Yes.
You know, he was like in first year in college. Like, that's how I see him.
He still kind of looks
He kind of looks like that, too. But it's funny how now when you go out with guys that they look, you know, they're older.
Yes.
Like, I'll look at somebody, I'm at 56, I can go out with somebody who's 60, and that's like actually a reasonable age for me to go out with, and you're like, 60, wow, okay.
That's an old man.
I mean, it's okay, but I'm just saying, like, it kind of sits with you because it's not going to be, it's not going to be Kit Harington. You know,
yes.
I'm not going to go out with anybody who looks like Kit Harington. Not that I even really sort of did, but I'm just saying, you know, whenever you like see these young actors and stuff, you're like, wow, that's not going to be who I'm going to date now.
No.
You know?
And it's also a little sobering when you see somebody who's younger and you go, wow, he's really attractive. And then somebody goes, oh, he's 32. And you're like, oh, I could be his mother. Never mind.
Like, really?
Never mind. That's
not even like pushing it, like having children at 15. Like, really be.
Like I'm 20-something years older than this dude.
Yeah.
That is a little eye-opening. Now, that brings up another issue in that men date women who are men in their 50s date women who are way younger than them.
Yep.
And nobody seems to care. And yet, when the reverse happens, it's news.
Oh, yeah.
Like right now, Pete Davidson from Saturday Night Live is dating Kate Beckinsale, who's in her 40s, and he's in his early mid-20s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're pretty hot and heavy. And he's even done a commentary on Saturday Night Live, like, why is this news? And then he gives all these other examples of the reverse, and it's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny,
yeah. But yeah, nowadays, it's if a woman dates a man even 10 years younger, and it's known that that's the age difference, it's like she's a cougar. What is that? What is that? I mean,
my son had that happen to him. He went to a bar with his friend, and this woman walked up to him, and she said, "Can I get you guys drinks?" And they went, "Sure." And he thought she was the waitress. So he told her, and she went to the bar, and she got them drinks.
And then
she put down, and then she said, you know, and then he gave her his charge card, and she went to the bartender, and she paid, and she came back, gave him back his charge card, and she goes, "Can you buy me a drink now?" And they were like, "What?" And she goes, "I'm not the waitress. Can I sit and join you?" And my son was like, my son's 22. He went, "Mom, what was that?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, was she my age? He goes, "Yes."
Oh,
freaked him out.
Whoa.
So that might be. But now I went out with a guy who was 20 years older than me when I was 21, and he didn't seem like he was 20 years older. He seemed like he was like 10 years older. And it sounds funny to say that, but he really did. Like, all my friends thought he was like 35. And everyone used to always say I was kind of old for my age because
old soul kind of thing.
Yeah, because I was youngest in the family, and I was an accident because I came 7 years after my brother, you know, even though my mother denies that. And so I kind of felt like I acted like I was 25. He was acting like he was 35. And we found out our age difference because we were out and we were talking. I was reading a book about the Kennedys. And he said, "Where were you?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "When Kennedy was assassinated." He goes, I was at a bar at lunchtime at work with one of my work coworkers.
At work?
Yeah. And we were having a beer, and we were shocked. And then nobody went back to work. And he goes, "Where were you?" And I was like, "Oh,
in vitro."
I was in a bassinet on the counter, and it was raining, and my mother was warming my formula. I was 6 months old, and my mother always tell that story, that's where she was when Kennedy was assassinated. And I was like, oh, wow, wait a minute. Like, we were like, how old are you? It was really funny. It's funny how there's like life events that happen, and then you really know how old somebody is.
I know. I had a similar thing when I was in my late teens. I'm going to say I was 18, 19 years old. My grandfather won a ski trip on a radio station, and of course he wasn't going to go. And so I was just getting started on comedy. So he told me, "Here, you can take this trip." So I called the radio station and I said, "I'm going to go in lieu of my grandfather, plus I'm a comedian." And they said, "Great." And so they were going to utilize my comedy a little bit on the bus. Mm-hmm. On the bus up to Tahoe. This was in the Bay Area then. I lived there. And so I was all funny, and on the bus I performed, and everybody loved me. So as a result of the ski trip, I started dating one of the DJs when we got back to the Bay Area. And I think it was he was older than me, and I found out later he was 18 years older than me. So if I'm 18, 19, he's like 36.
Right.
Or maybe even older, between 36 and 40.
Right.
So I think it was on our third date. He takes me home. He's in my living room. I go to the bathroom. I come back. He's dropped his drawers. His pants are around his ankles, and he's standing there like with this big smile on his face.
Well, it's the third date, so
yeah, third date.
We're moving on.
Yeah, but And you would think that would be traumatizing, which it wasn't really. The most traumatizing thing was, all I could think of was, ooh, cargo net? Because I had only been used to seeing a much younger demographic of male genitalia. This was some hanging low fruit there. And I was like, my dad, was always really modest, so I never saw an adult male naked from the waist down until that.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, thank goodness for that.
You dodged that.
Until that moment, and I stared for a couple of minutes, and it was visibly awkward for both of us all of a sudden, and I ruined the moment for him by saying, oh gosh, how old are you again? Which I never thought to ask until I saw him naked from the waist down. He immediately pulled up his drawers and said, I gotta go. And that was the end of that. So yeah, when you date someone who's older, something will come up eventually that will emphasize that age difference, and it could be a deal breaker or not. And I'm not even saying this could have been a deal breaker with this guy. It's just that it just took me off guard so much because I just had not seen anything like that up until that point, that I just needed I needed a moment to process, and he was just mortified and left. So that was the beginning of me emasculating many men to come at that moment and from then on, which is what my show A Bit Much is about, actually. Right,
yeah. Well, sort of. But, and it's also just you being you, you
me
know.
being me, but that somehow emasculates some men. Sorry, don't even mean to.
Right, exactly. I don't know if I could go. I've only gone out with a guy who's younger than me like once or twice and not long. It's never been something that I've always seemed to be attracted to men who are older than me. That's what's funny about now that I'm getting older. They're really older. Like, like if I went out with somebody 20 years older than me now,
you'd have to include the walker.
And just having some plans. Like, what do we're going to have about 4 good years, and then I'm going to do a little caretaking.
In that case, make sure he's got money.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I have dated somebody younger than me, but only about by 10 years. And if they themselves are an old soul, and I consider myself kind of a young soul, we meet somewhere in the middle. And I've actually dated younger men who look older than me. Mm-hmm. And people have assumed that I had dated this one guy once. He's 6 years younger than me. And somebody said when we were out, they thought we were father-daughter.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know. And
that's like the opposite of George Bush and Barbara Bush. Remember, everybody used to say that he looked like her son.
Yeah. And the reason is, I think, is because he had a beard, and his hair was salt and pepper, but his beard was almost white. Mm. And so just having that white beard just made him look older. Right. And I, of course, look fabulous for my age.
Yes, you do.
And so people thought that we were father-daughter. And so we were out for dinner, and we were ordering, and he went first because I couldn't decide what I wanted. I was like, "Oh, I'll go last." So he says, and the waiter turns and goes, "And what would your daughter like?" And of course, every Oedipal thing, it just went through his head. It was just kind of like, "Oh, okay, that does not help. That does not help." No.
That reminds me of my dad took me to the Monkey Bar in Manhattan when I was just able to drink, because then it was 18.
Yeah.
And so we went out to the Monkey Bar, and there was this comedian, and he was so funny. He's older comedian, kind of old Catskills kind of like comedian, like Jackie Mason kind of comedian.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and his was I don't remember his name, but he was kind of like the resident guy at the Monkey Bar, and just an old New York bar, for older people.
Yeah.
And my dad was kind of an older. When I was born, he was kind of older, in his late 30s and stuff. So at this time I was 18. Anyway, he took me to the Monkey Bar, and we're sitting there, and I'm having a drink out with my dad. It was fun. And the comedians started heckling us of our age difference. Like we were on a date.
Oh.
I thought my dad was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because my dad was like my cousins used to always say that he was John Wayne. They used to call him John Wayne because my dad was a big guy, like tough guy.
Yeah.
And I really thought my dad, and I was like, Dad, he's just kidding, Dad, because he was like, it's my daughter, and he was so angry at this guy. But it was funny because he was like, oh yeah, right, your daughter, yeah, we all believe that, and my father was just falling into it by being angry, and
which
it was wild. It was great. I thought it was kind of funny. I didn't think it was weird, but then I was young, so I thought it was funny that he thought that. My father was just like, oh. And my stepmother's much younger. My stepmother's like 18 years younger than he was, so it wasn't. So maybe it might have been a little dig to him, where he didn't like it. It was funny.
Well, one time I have a son who's 24, or he's going to be 24 in June, and we were out at a Christmas party. Not this last Christmas, but the Christmas before. And it was a big, fancy kind of industry Christmas party. So I looked, I'd got a facial. I dressed up. I looked nice. He dressed up. And it's funny, when you're in your 20s and you dress up, you try to look older.
Yeah.
And when you're our age, we'll just say that, and you dress up, you skew a little younger.
Right.
And so what happened was we were out together, and we're talking to this older couple. I would say they were in their late 40s, early 50s. And it came out in conversation that they thought we were dating. And my son about puked. He was like, oh. And I go, oh, you have to excuse him. I'm his mother. And they went, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We thought you guys were a couple. We knew you were older. But we thought, he was in his 30s, you were in your 40s, and that was all good. And so we walk away. My son is still like gagging. And I said, all right, well, I'll teach you to try to look older than you are. Right? Just be happy with the way you look, Get rid of that extra facial hair you don't need, and just, try.
People are funny how they have to guess. Why do people have to guess?
I don't know.
Like they're funny how they have to like say who you are. They're funny that way. Like why is it that why does the waiter have to say, what does your daughter want?
Yeah, exactly.
Why can't they just say,
and the lady will have.
We learn that in improv, right? In improv, you have to be careful when you pull somebody up from the audience.
Yes.
You don't want to say like,
when's the baby due?
Yeah, all right. Or like, why don't we, let's do tell me, what's your mother's name? My mother died last week, So you just say, hey, give me a good female name,
Exactly.
Like you always try to be very ambiguous because you don't want to pinpoint anything and ruin the scene, right? So maybe that's kind of why I don't do that. I just don't do that. I just don't try to guess what people are, because then they're so shocked when they're wrong. Mm-hmm. They've got to be wrong all the time, right?
Yes. And if you do have to guess, you just skew away like, how old do you think I am? Oh, I think you're still in college. And because you could be 90 and still in college, but it doesn't make it sound like that.
My sons are at Smart and Final. Jeff loves to tell this story. Like he was at Smart and Final with his younger brother, who's who's 4 years younger than he is. And they're at Smart and Final, and the girl's checking him out, and the girl goes, oh, so you guys, you guys, are you, it's something like, oh, we're brothers, and they're like, oh, what school do you go to, And Jeff's like, you go to Burroughs? And Jeff's like, I'm a graduate from college. So then he thought, wait a minute, if she thinks I'm at Burroughs, which is a high school, then my 6 foot, brother, what's he 12? Like what was this? It was funny. Or one time they were guessing he was an actor or something. He was like, can I just shop? Like, why does everybody have to guess who I am at Smart and Final? Can I just get my yams and get out of here? It's really funny.
And it's so true, because you become defined by what other people think of you, and it's kind of that can chip away at your authenticity.
Right.
Like if you look older, people generally think you look older than you are, or even younger than you are, because there is something about, if you're older and you look younger than you are, sometimes you want credit for those years you're not given credit for.
Right. Yeah.
A great example is my mom. She is pushing 80. She will be 79 this year in July. And honestly, she looks like she could be in her early 60s, late 50s. And sometimes I don't think she gets the respect that I would want at 80. because they think she can, carry her own groceries to the car or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's kind of sad. She just looks like she's able-bodied, and she is, but inside, it's still, you got more aches and pains at 80 than whether it looks like your body does or not. And so people just assume that she doesn't need the help that she would like to have sometimes. And I feel bad for her because of that. So,
yeah, no, I can completely relate. That happened with my mother at church. She was like running this car wash. I don't even know how that happened. She's going to be 90 this year, and she was like 80 running a car wash, and she's walking around with a big box of water, and she's handing people water with this box of water. And I'm like, how did this happen? Stop letting her do these things.
Yeah.
And they were all like, oh, what's the big deal? Because they thought she was like 70. Mm-hmm. Like they thought she wanted, and they want to take it away from her. I'm like, no, she's 80 and she doesn't need to be walking around serving everybody water bottles.
Yeah.
So everyone, yeah, it's really true.
Well, and the thing is, at 80, even 70, if you can do it, you pay for it later, whether you think you can do it or not, so even though mom may think, oh, I can handle this box of water now, I mean, she's going to suffer that night.
Oh yeah, no, she ended up in the emergency room dehydrated.
How ironic is that?
I am not kidding. Because she was handing everybody else the water and never drank any water herself.
Yeah.
Actually, really true. That isn't even like a made up thing.
Yeah.
She was sitting there with the doctor going, I was running a car wash and I didn't drink any water. So handing water out to everybody else. Oh my gosh.
Poor mom.
Well, anyway, we could talk all day. I wanted to ask you before we get into your show, because your show's called A Bit Much, mm-hmm. and we were talking before about how it's like you being you and all that other stuff. You talk about dating and dealing with men, but what about your kids? Like, if your kids ever felt like, do you feel like your kids think you're a bit much, or are they kind of used to being you? You're being a comedian, or?
Well, if you'd asked them when they were younger if I was a bit much, they would say absolutely. But now they kind of like it. They see, and this is interesting. I see the type of women that they date or are attracted to, and they are independent, outspoken women, and it's good because that's who raised them, so they're used to dealing with that kind of a woman.
Yes.
But when they were little, people would come up to them and go, your mom is so funny. Oh, it must be so much fun living at home. She just must make you laugh and laugh and laugh. Is that how it is? And they'd be like, no. No, it's not like that at all. And I used to have a very popular comedy blog called From Nonsense to Mom Sense, How My Life as a Stand-Up Comic Prepared Me for Motherhood. And I wrote about them. And whenever we'd be out and something crazy would happen, they'd turn to me and go, don't blog about that. So they were not impressed when they were little at all. In fact, when my book, Confessions of a Bang Geek Mom, came out, I went on a press junket, and I was on, sometimes they would come with me, like in the summer. And I was on a radio station talk show, kind of like this, talking about the book. And they spoke too, but not nearly as much. And so the interviewer tried to get them involved and says to the younger one, Quinn, hey, so your mom writes a lot about you in here, and some of this stuff is just hysterical. Did this really all happen? And he, point blank, without skipping a beat, says, oh, no, it's all lies. I was like, what? What? No, it isn't. And so I said, no, that's not true. And he goes, oh, yeah, Mom, it's just so over the top. No. And he's like in the 7th grade at the time. And
perfect age.
Yes.
Right in the middle of middle school.
Yes. And the other one was in the 10th grade. And we argued, and I apologized to the interviewer, and he goes, oh, no worries. Just keep going. This is good radio. So then I say to the older one, Derek, help me out here. These are not lies. And he goes, some of this happened, but not exactly the way you are saying. Anyway, we went round and round, and I finally ended it by saying, that's it. That's enough. This is my truth. You don't like it? Go write your own damn books. And the interviewer is like, and that's another episode today of Family Unity. Thanks for tuning in, and you can find this book at blah, 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 blah. And in the background, you can still hear...
I can't believe you said that.
Yeah, exactly. So they've had their share of mom being a comedian. And the younger one, I think he doesn't want to, but he could be a stand-up comic. He inherited that acerbic wit. He can think fast on his feet. They both are in the entertainment industry, but they're jazz musicians. They both play the sax.
Yeah. Really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the older one's actually made quite a name for himself. Derek Dymalski, if you go out there and Google him, he's a big sax player. And the younger one is still in music school. He goes to Lamont School of Music at the University of Denver, but he wants to be a music producer. And he's a great musician in his own right as well. So I think growing up, they grew up on comedy stages, improv stages, movie sets. I used to have my own commercial production company where I produced commercials, and I would give them a boom mic and stick them in a corner, because they can get into small spaces. And I didn't have to pay them. So odds I'm going to serve them well as adults.
Well, you always followed your passion and you followed your dreams, and so I think they got that from you.
They did. I tried.
Which is great.
I figured out a way to make it work. Mm-hmm. I only worked in an office the first 5 years of my life after college. So I graduated from college, and I got a job at McDonnell Douglas. I was a
you're a rocket scientist.
I was a rocket scientist. Yeah, I have degrees in math and mechanical engineering from UC Berkeley.
I love in your one woman show when you were talking a bit much about that. It's like, you had to dumb down when you're talking you didn't want to you don't want to be too smart when you're on a date.
No, exactly. And it was a great way to get rid of guys who were trying to hit on you in a bar. You just tell them that and they're like, okay, next.
There's actually an episode of Love Boat back when I was young. I remember. And it was Shelley Hack. This is me and my memory. I can't remember what I need to do tomorrow, but I remember that Shelley Hack was in this episode of Love Boat. Just give me Kevin Tighe from Emergency.
Oh, God,
and
yes.
She was a rocket scientist, and everyone talked her into being dumb to get him. And then when she got him, then she had to out that she was actually super smart.
And did he still like her?
He still liked her because that's what he was looking for.
Oh,
he
sure.
wanted a smart girl.
Yeah, that's a Hollywood script right there, isn't it? Yeah, that happens every day. I'm walking down the aisle at Whole Foods, and I see man after man just looking for a female rocket scientist. Yeah, going through the Amy's frozen foods. Why can't I find
a girl smarter than me?
Well, a girl with an IQ of 160. Because that turns me on. Yeah, right. Okay.
Oh, yeah. You see it all the time. That's what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So what made you do the one-woman show? I know you do stand-up. You do a lot, but what is it that made you decide you wanted to just do a one-woman show? And
That's a great question, and no one's asked me that, and thank you for asking. As a comedian, I've always been more of a storyteller. Like in comedy, when you do open mics, and even when you've got a featured set, it's, you get anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Right.
And I would spend my 5 to 10 minutes telling one story with a through line and a beginning, middle, and end. And actually, in the early days, I would get flack from some club owners because they wanted the setup punch, the Henny Youngman kind of jokes. And I can do that. It's just not, I'm better at telling a story. And people are totally engaged, but a lot of times they're not like laughing every other thing that comes out of my mouth because they're so engaged, they're listening. And then when I do say something funny, it gets a huge laugh. And so I decided, I've been seeing more what they call solo theater or solo shows, especially Netflix does this a lot. They'll call it a 1-hour comedy special, but John Leguizamo or Jim Jeffries, they'll spend 20 minutes on one story, and maybe for the whole hour or 70 minutes, they've maybe told only, 2 or 3 stories. Ellen DeGeneres' new special is like that, too.
Oh, she's the best.
Yeah.
I remember when she first came out in stand-up. For those who don't know listening, I actually did a little stand-up when I was younger.
Yes.
But she is the best with the story, her storyline. And also Jake Johansson's one of my favorites. Oh, my gosh.
So all of these people were finding a way to make it work. And I thought, you know what? The time has come. I'm going to do that. I'm going to just work on one story for an hour. Mm-hmm. And my goal is to eventually, hopefully next year in 2020, get my own Netflix special. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm working on is A Bit Much. That's the title of my show. Mm-hmm. And it's about my authenticity. and I've never done an entire hour of a single story that was funny until it premiered at the Solo Fest on February 28th, and it got fantastic reviews.
I was there. It was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it got legitimate reviews from people I don't even know, who wrote about it. And it's always, I have a...
Who said that?
I know.
It's not even somebody I know and begged to come and see me.
Right. I couldn't pick them out of a crowd. But it's always, I have a Google alert on my name. And so it's always, it came a week later, it came up. And it said, NoHo Arts was the first one. And I thought, oh, God, that's a review. And I honestly got it up on my screen, the link, and I walked around. I was sweating. I got coffee. I took my dog for a walk. I come back, and I'm like, all right, I just need to look at this. And so I looked at it, and she loved it. And so...
Yeah, she did. It was great. I think she was sitting in front of me when I saw her picture on the thing. I thought,
really?
I think she was like 2 or 3 rows ahead of me, and she did. Yeah. Well, we all did. We loved it.
Yeah, it was a great theater. It only held like 90 people, and it looked sold out, but on paper there were like 5 seats still available. And so it was just wonderful. It was so different in terms of stand-up. It was a little bit weird. I played like several characters myself, and I thought, this is either going to be brilliant or I'm just shooting myself in the foot. So luckily it was the former, and I'm going to just keep working on it.
Well, I think what's great is that's what I'm learning too, is that you have to just do it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to know unless you do it. You can sit around and think about it all you want, but until you do it, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's going to work or it's a good idea or whatever. And if it didn't work, so what?
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting because I do have small bits. Because, like I said, when I do other stand-up 5 minutes, I have my greatest hits. And one of them is this bit I do about a shake weight, which I don't know if you were there that night. I was just a featured comic in Unholy Comedy at the Pig and Whistle.
I couldn't make that one.
Oh,
but yeah, I wanted to, but yeah.
Well, I only had 8 minutes on that one, and because it wasn't an open mic, but it was a featured comic, and so I did this bit I do about shake weight, and it just kills every time. And it's one story about being in a Target and seeing a shake weight and watching the patrons play with it. And I tried some new things with it, like I actually planted a shake weight in the audience with one of my comic friends, and I said, "Is anybody out there got a shake weight I can borrow?" And she's like, "I do," and that was just, it was hysterical. So now, when I go, and I like to do pieces of my show in open mics, because that's how you can, hone it and get it better. Because there aren't very many people who let you go up an hour.
Right.
So, but people will go, "Well, shake weight, do the shake weight." And it's like, I don't want to do the shake weight. I want to practice this one part of my show. So
right.
It's tough. It's a balancing act. You want people to come out and support you, and give them what they want, but at the same time, you want to try new things. I remember one time Keith Richards, he complained because every time they played not Sympathy for the Devil, Gimme Shelter,
right,
everybody wanted the guitar solo in the middle of it to be exactly the same.
Oh.
And he said, I just want to do it, the opportunity to do it different every time.
Yes.
And people would actually get mad at him because he didn't do it the same way.
Billy Joel talks about how he's played Piano Man so many times. He's really fun to see in concert. He's very funny. And he's
a great storyteller, by the way.
And he's doing Piano Man, and he says he'll start playing it, and he'll go, play in the beginning, and then he'll go, "It's 9:00 on a Saturday. I wonder if they have cheese in the back. I wonder if they're going to have a cheese plate." Regular crowds coming in, and the cheese plate. And he said, and if he screwed up, and he said like the cheese plate. And he said Madison Square Garden got silent. What's he doing? He said, "You can't mess with the words."
I want my money back. He said cheese plate.
He says it's brutal. Like, if he doesn't do, and then, was it Billy the Kid, he said, is completely factually inaccurate. Billy the Kid is, it's the Rio Grande doesn't even go east and west.
No, it doesn't.
It's like a mess. But he wrote it, now everybody knows the words, and he's like, "So I'm just saying it out loud. I know it's historically inaccurate. Let's go." I was writing it. I was house sitting. So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Well, oh my gosh, we're at 10:50. We're 5 minutes to go. So that's great. All right. So, your show's going to be so it's 3 different nights. So you said it's June. So the 3 nights that it's going to be on at the Hollywood Fringe. So talk a little bit, just real quick, about what the Hollywood Fringe is.
Okay. The Hollywood Fringe is one of the biggest, and it might be the biggest in the U.S., theater festival in the country. I'm just going to say it is. If it's not, it's one of the top ones. The biggest one in the world is the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland, which is every year in August. But the Hollywood Fringe is the month of June, and it has, I think they program over 700 live performances in theaters all over Hollywood.
Wow.
And
700.
Most of them, and when I say 700, I think there's about 400 unique shows, but they show multiple times. So there's like 700 performances.
Oh, okay.
Most of which are on Theater Row in Santa Monica, on Santa Monica Boulevard, not in Santa Monica, but on Santa Monica Boulevard. Mm-hmm. But they're scattered the others are scattered all over Hollywood. And there's solo shows, there's live theater ensembles, there's cabaret, there's different categories of live performance, and a lot of these performances go on to Broadway after this, or some of them come from Broadway to here. Mm-hmm. So theater goers or participants can get a pass and see as much as they want, or they can pay per individual show, and the shows range anywhere from $5 to $50, because some of them, they even do immersion theater, which is really fun. I did one of those. I not performed in, but participated in one of those last year, and it was this thing where I think, and the ticket was like $30. You pay, you meet somewhere, and they take you. It's at night. You're walking through Hollywood, and then there are actors that are stationed at certain places. They come out and interact with you in a certain way, and you go on a quest to find something. It's so fun.
That sounds super fun. I want to do that.
Awesome. It is awesome. And so, there's a whole immersion theater section of it. So the best thing to do would just to be go on hollywoodfringe.org, and then, you can navigate the website. There's a click for shows, and then you can search by particular shows. My show is called A Bit Much, and it's under the solo theater or I just think it's solo performance section, but you could just search on the name. And I have 3 shows over in the month of June. June 8th, which is a Saturday at noon. I wanted one that was earlier in the day.
Oh, cool.
Then June 16th, which is a Sunday, and that's at 4 p.m., and then June 27th, which is a Thursday, and that's at 6 p.m. So I wanted different times of different days, and I have
same theater.
Yes, it's in the Lounge Theater, which is 6201 Santa Monica Boulevard. So it's Santa Monica and El Centro.
Okay,
down there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I really think that I'm from back east, so I was used to going to theater in New York. And in Los Angeles, it seems like it's taken a little bit for it to get rolling. Yeah. But I think that with everybody being inside and, working, people work from home and they don't really interact as much. I think theater is becoming, because you're really there's something to be said about being in a theater with it going on, because there's an energy factor of just being right there live, live and have it happening right in front of you. Yeah. It's different than watching it as a 1-minute video on Instagram.
That's so true. And you, as a performer, as a solo performer and a comedian, it's so funny. There's some nights where you do the same routine and it kills because they're just into it. And you could take that same routine on another night with another audience and get a lukewarm reaction. It's just, you're right. The audience has an energy all their own, and every audience is different. So that's kind of the exciting thing about being on stage live is, in some ways, you're working without a net. You just don't really know what's going to happen until you walk out there and do it. And I love that. I love being able to kind of assess the room and then maybe, this isn't working, I'm going to try this. Which is why I like open mics, because I can try new things and have those kind of things in my hip pocket ready to go. Right. If something doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. But that's exciting for the audience member too, because if something's made it to YouTube or Instagram, somebody's looked at it and they've fixed it or they've whatever. Oh, yeah. But when you're in live, they are happening right in front of you. It's exciting.
Yeah. And
for an audience member.
I've seen some of the Netflix specials that are recorded like in Hollywood, like at the Palladium or something, and they edit them down to fit within a time frame, because usually those specials are anywhere from an hour and 15 to an hour and a half. And it's funny what they end up cutting out, because they end up cutting out a lot of the interaction with the audience, because that doesn't transcend on video.
Right.
People on home watching TV don't want to watch you interact necessarily with the audience. That's more fun when you're there.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different form of entertainment.
Right. A big long laugh, or a big delayed laugh, or a big, there's nothing like being an audience when everybody's laughing,
right?
And you're in the middle of it,
right? And
it's
as
great.
A comedian and a performer as well, when you get them to laugh exactly the way you want, it's like hitting the sweet spot on a tennis racket. There is just nothing better when you got them with you.
No, time stands still.
It does.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is.
It's exactly the opposite when that doesn't happen. But once that happens, you feel like I'm still alive. I'm still, I'm all right. I survived it. I guess I'll be okay. And then there's a power to that too.
I've been booed off a stage in Texas. I mean, a long time ago, but I just tanked one time in Texas, and I just, believe me, I went home with my tail between my legs that night.
But you feel like it's a powerful thing, because you go, well, I survived that. I mean, it couldn't be, I'll survive it so it probably never happened again like that.
No, it hasn't. And I will say, I do feel bulletproof on stage. There is nothing anybody could do to me that would make me feel bad enough to never do that again.
Right.
Never get on a stage again. Nothing. I'm pretty confident now when I'm on stage. Nothing can happen.
Yeah, well, it comes across. It's just a great, great show. So, all right, well, we could go on and on, as we know. So I hope you come back to visit me.
Anytime
and I hope
you
you get to be a guest again. It would be great. Maybe when you get closer or something, or if you want, we could do it again, or talk about other stuff.
Away.
Yeah, talk about other stuff. So I'll post everything on my Facebook page, and I will I want to start my music. I shouldn't say that, but I'm trying to be good about wrapping it up.
Okay.
So I'll post everything about Stacy on the Facebook page. I'll post her book if you want to pick up her book, her memoir, Midwife information, if you're thinking about writing a book, because listen, do it for yourself, even if it never even gets published. It's such a good thing to go through.
Let me give you the website. Just go to thememoirmidwife.com. All one word.
And I'll post it. I'll put it on my Facebook page. I really need your help to follow me on Spreaker. I promise that Spreaker, my platform, will not go into your bank account and take all your money out. And it's just like signing up for Zuli's catalog or whatever. But if you could and follow my podcast, I'd really appreciate it, because I want to start branching out and sharing it out to different platforms and stuff like that. So that'd be great. So this is the end of my, so follow my Facebook. It's all SallyTalk. So everywhere you want to find me on Twitter or anything, it's all called SallyTalk. And we'll be back next week. And thanks so much for listening, and talk to you later.